Hi, it's Neil Sean here on Your Entertainment News. We're in the heart of London at the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane, with the one and only, the very gorgeous, the lovely Miss Sheena Easton. Remember those, Sheena?
If you miss it, you miss out.
Don't miss Sheena today on Your Entertainment News.
40 seconds to reach.
Sheena, lovely to see you. Finally to meet you, in fact. I'm so thrilled. I've got to say, we're here, of course, in the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane. You're a West End star. So how did all that come around then?
Well, I mean, we open officially in a couple of days, so might be a bit premature to say that. But yeah, I mean, it came about in the normal way. My agent actually got a phone call saying, would Sheena be interested in coming over to play the role of Dorothy Brock in 42nd Street? And here we are. I came over and I did it.
Even that's quite nerve-wracking though, isn't it? Because you're thinking, Theatre Royal, Drury Lane, London, big musical, iconic musical.
Beautifully iconic musical in a beautifully iconic theatre. So yeah, that was definitely a wonderful thing to be asked to come and do. So I was very flattered to get the offer, very much so. But I'd done Broadway a couple of times before, so I'd had the experience of, you know, being in a production, being on stage, and of course I'm constantly traveling and performing. I've never stopped doing that, even though I dialed it back when my kids came along and you know, my career took a back seat. I never stopped. I just slowed it down and I made a point of not being gone from my kids for long periods of time. But you know, right before I came over here, I just did a symphony in Tokyo and a casino gig in Vegas. And then, you know, I think it was like 3 weeks later I was here. So the train has kept going, just it changes direction.
I like what you said in an interview actually about, you know, your children, and you said that they're kind of used to seeing mum on this massive billboard in Las Vegas. And I was trying to think, yeah, I wonder what that's like for a child to see your mum, because you're always just mum to them, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I think that's how all children are. You know, you could have a mom or a dad who is one of the top neurosurgeons, or, you know, politicians or soccer players, or you know, the school principal.
Yeah.
You know, and other people see them in a different role, but to you it's just your mom.
Yeah.
And that's how my kids were raised. I very much wanted them to understand that what I did was a job, and that was it. Mom went out to work and came back.
Yeah. Now, Dorothy, tell me about her. What's she like as a character? I mean, to me, I think it's one of the juiciest roles in a musical, to be honest, because we don't give too much away, but she might not be as sweet as we all think.
No, she's not. She's not gonna, you know, melt. I love Dorothy because she's got a lot of history that brings her to the moment that we see her in the show. She's a survivor. She's got a great attitude, you know, she's feisty. She does have a little bit of a, you know, she's got some zingers there. She's got a little mean streak here and there, and that's fun to play.
Yeah.
Any actor will tell you that. Yeah, you get to come on and you've got this, you know, the one-liner that puts somebody down and kind of like flounce off. That's a great moment in a fabulous costume.
Yeah.
You know, that's great.
Bette Davis rolled into one, isn't it?
Yes. So I do get those moments, and I have wonderful songs to sing in the show. I get some beautiful songs, and the orchestra is just gorgeous. So it's very much a fun role to play, for sure.
I have to say, you talk about singing. Your version of Not While I'm Around is my all-time favourite version. It's the most haunting version I've ever heard. When you were making that, because that album, you know, is a brilliant album, I have to say. But when you were making that, you know, how did you pick the songs that you wanted to record? Because it's not what we know you for.
No.
You know what I mean?
Well, that particular album was recorded. Was asked to do it by the Japanese end of my record company. It was mainly for their market. And it's a song that I actually used to sing at night to my daughter. My son had a different song, she had that one. So that album was all about songs that made me think of home, and songs about, you know, my love, which is my kids and home.
Yeah. I mean, but it's almost like it's so clear. Your voice has got such purity to it. And, you know, you think, wow, it must have been great because it's a proper orchestra as well. You know, you've got real instruments around you. Is that important as a singer for you? You know, do you like
You definitely click into what emotion you're portraying, and you have that, you know, sometimes 80-piece orchestra swelling up behind you. It drives it, and you get lost in the moment. And I think that's what the audience wants to see. I know when I go to see a show, I want to see an artist who is lost in the material that they're performing. It's got to move them before it can move you. So I have to be moved, otherwise my audience won't be moved.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's moments where you just kind of get swept away and then you come to your senses. But there's a difference between, performing when I perform with me in the band and we do the hits. That's where I'm more Sheena Easton, as you put it. It's more myself.
Yeah.
My friends that would come along would totally recognize me in it. But when you're doing something that requires portraying a character, you have to use a bit of yourself, but you also have to tell that character's story and bring their point of view to whatever piece of material that you're performing.
I mean, you talk about, because you've had such an extensive career. I mean, when I loved you from the off, but the bottom line you don't realise is so many things you've done. And I didn't realise or forgotten that you were the first lady to sing the Bond theme within the film.
Oh,
which
yes.
was a big thing,
Yeah.
You don't realise it because, when you're a bit younger, you go see the film, and I just remember thinking, how did they get away?
Well, it was wonderful to be a part of the Bond family and part of that franchise to begin with. Because I grew up listening to Shirley Bassey, who's done my favorite Bond themes ever, and always will be my favorite, and all the other great artists that performed on it. So for me to be chosen that year to kind of carry the torch, that was a thrill. And then Maurice Binder, who designed all the opening credits for the Bond theme, he said, you know what, I want to use your face and build it around you. And I'm thinking, okay, didn't know what that would entail, but I'm like, all right, let's go for it, let's do it. And what it actually entailed was not very much glamour. It was pretty much 18 hours of standing still with my head clamped to a vise. Because they used the camera that zoomed in to where it was just the eyes or just the mouth. And if I had moved, this way, I'd have been out of the frame. So it was trying to sing with expression, but don't move a millimeter or it blows the shot. So it was a challenge. Looking back on it, I'll say it was fun, but at the time it really wasn't.
Because also you had so many hits, right? And I always think it's very strange when you look at this because you're very young, and when you're starting out, you don't realise the enormity of what you're being given. Like you get a hit record and you think, oh, so what, I've had a hit record, and then you get another one, and then it almost becomes a norm, if you like, doesn't it? Because you've got these things.
I think I'm going to have to disagree with you there.
Did you always think differently?
No, I don't believe there could be anybody that's really like alive and focused that just goes, oh, it's another hit record. I mean, I don't think that Beyonce or Adele goes, oh, it's another Grammy, No,
but what I mean by that is, your continued success. Because when you're starting out and you get like your first hit record, you're not sure of the mechanics behind it because you're too young.
I see
they
what
say,
you
know what I mean? They
Mm-hmm.
go, oh, here's your record. You go, great, you record it, and then you're traveling around the world, and it's all wonderful. But it's only when you get to our age that you realise that was a lot harder than I realised. You know what I mean? You're sort of like, yes, I see what you have to do now.
I think that there's somewhere in the middle there. Not, when you're young, everything's new and you're bold and you go for it. And when you're older, you kind of are more cautious because you know how things can go wrong.
Yeah.
So you also you're cautious, but you also understand that, well, if I don't try, if I don't attempt it, then there'll be no enjoyment or success either. It's that time in the middle of your life, and I don't care what you do in your life, whether you're in show business or if you're in business or whatever you're doing, right around your 30s is when you tend to be very cautious because you know that right now I'm making decisions that's really gonna affect
Actually, that's a good
where
point.
things go. So I think that middle part of your life and your career is when you tend to overthink things. At the start and at the end, you're like, it's going to be fun, let's just go for it. I've survived stuff, I can do this. So I'm back to that part of my life where I go, what's the worst that can happen? Failure, I've done that before. And I'm still standing and I'm still invited to the party, so to speak. So now I tend to just like I was when I was starting out, I go, do I want to do that? Is it going to be tough? Yeah, but it's worth it then, So it's back to being fun again.
Do you know, because of this musical is such a feel-good thing, what I like about it is it's just sheer glamour, you know, which is, we haven't had a lot of glamour. I know you're in a glamorous location, Sheena, but you know, in England, we haven't, it seems like there's a shift back to feel-good, for want of a better word, you know what I mean? When you see all these girls in the costumes and everything like that, it must be great just to be in the wings, tapping your foot, going, oh, wow, this is, you know, what a show.
Yeah, I mean, we still, we'll come off of one of our moments in the show, and we'll rush to our dressing room to get into our costume, like, you know, 3 minutes before we need to, because there's certain parts of the show we don't want to miss. And we're a real pain to everybody around us, because, you know, there's grips and people trying to move things and get the sets moving, and they're like, get out of our way, because we're all like trying to not stick our heads too far out the curtain so we're not seen by the audience, just watching these amazing moments that the dancers bring to the show. So, you know, we've been doing the show, rehearsing and all the rest of it now for, you know, several weeks, and I'm still blown away each time I see certain moments in the show still make me go, oh, you know, you get goosebumps at certain things.
I mean, you've appeared on so many famous stages, and this is one of them, but, you know, to be in the heart of Theatre Row Drury Lane, and you're standing there singing, do you sometimes look out at this vast auditorium and think, gosh, there's been so many people standing here, you know, you think of the names that are standing right in your spot, and they're looking at these boxes, and you think, well, this is not bad.
Yes, this is one of the theatres that if you're gonna play in a theatre, let it be this one. It's not only historic, and it has so much that, you know, you can absorb, and you're walking around going, ooh, look at that, look at that. Every little corner there's something interesting to look at just in the building itself. But you're right, you can't help but realize that you're just one of a long line of entertainers that have been allowed the privilege of being on that stage.
And it is, isn't it? That's the thing.
It's a real privilege, and that's something that I've never not acknowledged every time I step out there. It's like I'm so lucky to be out there. And even though it's a vast theater, it's strangely intimate, and a lot of performers have said that about it, because it's so well designed, and we can see, if anybody in the audience ever comes and goes, oh, can they see us up here? We can see people all the way up in the third tier to the rafters, because when we're standing there taking our bows and we see everybody up on their feet and loving it, you know, we're taking that and we can see everybody. So it's just so well built. It really wraps its arms around you as a performer, and you feel blessed by that.
I have to ask, finally, I mean, when do we get some new music from you? Because, as I say, I've got all of your stuff, and I love all, I'm not just saying I love all of it, but when do you go back, and I'm desperate to know, like, what direction musically, because you've changed direction a lot.
Yeah.
And I think this is quite clever. That's why you've kept going, if you like, you know, because nobody, I think if you become formulaic, people go, oh, we know what to expect. But, you know, you went from that to this. And where do you want to go next? Would it be a musicals album, maybe?
You know, I get asked a lot, especially by my hardcore fan base that have supported me all these years while I've, you know, stopped recording. Yeah, but seriously, I get asked often, are you going to record again? When are you going to record again? And the most truthful answer I can give is that it'll be something that comes out of me honestly. It'll be something where I'm really kind of like driven to do it. It's almost like it's so irresistible I can't not do it, kind of like doing this show. And in the last years, I haven't felt that about a project. There's been nothing that's made me feel like I have to go do that. Because my focus was about, you know, my kids and going out and doing the symphonies and the shows that I was doing. But maybe now that I'm sort of stepping into the third phase of my career, so to speak, there might be a project that tempts me. But first and foremost, my whole life, I've been a live performer. When I recorded those first albums, I was constantly on the road, always out doing something live somewhere. That's my first love, is to be on a stage.
I think you can see that when you watch the films. You can see you enjoy it. And that's
I do
the thing.
love it. I love to have my audience right in front of me.
Yeah.
And so while I can do that, while I get the opportunities like this show to do that, that's what I'll be doing. And I've said this a couple of times, that this show gives so much, and it's given so much to me, that it really deserves my 100% focus and commitment. And I've been asked quite often, what's your next thing? And I'm like, oh, haven't thought that far ahead. This is my next thing.
Live in the moment.
This is it. And then when I get, you know, to the end of the run, then I'll take a breather and plan my next step, or see which doors opened and whether or not I want to go through it. But yeah, there could be an album in the future, but you know what? it's going to be as much of a surprise to me as it is to you.
Sheena Easton, it's been an absolute thrill to finally meet you. I've loved you for years. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was a pleasure.
40 seconds.